Everything is such a meth. A methamphetamine trip report by charismatic addict. Posted to earwid.org May 16th, 2016. This is my story. It's a bit of a read, but I wanted to share a bit of everything I've gone through, to really give readers an idea of what exactly meth is capable of. My heart breaks for those of you also battling an addiction to meth, and for those who haven't signed your life away yet, do not do it. I would never wish the pain and devastation of a meth addiction on my very worst enemy. Nothing and no one should ever be worth giving up your life for, especially her. Addictions of any kind are never easy. They're definitely not easy to go through. They're not exactly something easy to explain to those who have never experienced addiction firsthand. I'm still trying to figure out the other half of an addiction myself, honestly. Recovery and sobriety, something I have never quite been able to grasp. After 8 years, the more I think I understand it, and I'm no longer lost in denial, the farther away from reality I continue taking myself. I never in a million years thought I'd ever take myself directly to hell though. Willingly. I'm an alcoholic and began heavily drinking when I was 15 years old. I had just lost my grandma suddenly and unexpectedly. She was my entire world and I was completely devastated, crushed. I was already in a deep, dark depression, having been going through quite a bit of other hardships at that time, and her death was it for me. I didn't want to feel anymore. The first time I got drunk, 6 shots of vodka gave me a superpower that would rapidly become an obsession. The ability to black out and not have to feel or think or literally even have to be present to life. I spent the next 6 years blacking my life out. I was brutally assaulted the first time I had ever had sex, as well as taken advantage of countless times over the years by men whose names I have never even known. I was stolen from, drawn on, ridiculed. I broke my arm in 6 places and became hooked on opiates, fell in a fire, fell out of a moving vehicle, even crashed a stolen car while almost ending my life, and 2 other boys who had just fucked me and forced me to drive them home afterwards. I was kicked out and became homeless after leaving a rehab I entered that was more of an alternative to jail for people who had no other choice. I was hospitalized over 6 times, all alcohol-related reasons, and racked up nearly $100,000 in medical debt. I cannot even begin to count the times I have nearly tried to end my life while intoxicated, or due to complications caused due to being intoxicated. I thought that at that point, I had truly reached, more so crashed going full speed, rock bottom. I really had no idea. I knew I never wanted to try meth for the first time. My whole life I had watched firsthand just what it's capable of. It was nothing I'd ever wanted for myself, for my life. It broke my heart in inexplainable ways upon finding out I had friends who were using crystal meth once I moved to the mainland. And even worse, I'd fallen in love with a meth addict. Being an addict personally to different substances, I thought I could understand in some sort of way and that I could help. I had no idea what I was dealing with initially. If I could go back in time and help anyone now, I'd help myself. Love is a powerful thing. But if you've met crystal meth, you know that she's a whole lot more powerful. At this point, I wish I was still capable of love. Loving something. Someone. Because I'm not even in love with the drug that controls me. I never was. In fact, I hate it. It's honestly sickening how much I write about my hatred for it every time I get high. You'd think it would be as simple as just not getting high anymore, right? Well, it's not. It's the most manipulative, deceitful devastation to ever enter my life by choice. The first time I got high, I was with a group of people and I didn't even really get it. I was so used to an actual feeling of intoxication after drinking or doing drugs that meth caught me a little off guard. Meth doesn't exactly work that way. We ended up going to get another bag of drugs once the first was gone, because I didn't really know for sure whether the first bag had done what it was supposed to. I was talking, comprehending, but still in a pretty sober state of mind. aside from the shots of tequila I had taken earlier. And now I was clenching my jaws together very tightly. 3 days later, and I was beyond dehydrated. I physically could not eat because my mouth was so dry. I was hearing things around me that only I happened to be hearing, and my body, well, it hurt. I felt as if I had run a marathon or something. 3 days of no sleep was definitely not one big party like you'd think. I was delusional, and it was a little scary. I was experiencing what it meant to be spun for the very first time in my life. I would not say I exactly enjoyed my first time, nor would I say I experienced extreme feelings of pleasure and happiness, as you will often hear about. It was more of a confusing, somewhat depressing, and even disappointing experience. I don't recall having an overwhelming desire to do it again. Unfortunately though, for all of the addicts I hadn't realised were surrounding me, my using for the first time was somewhat of a jackpot for their habits. I had acquired a pipe of my own from the very first time. I'd been talked into paying for everything, and a couple of friends wanted to use it again and said this next time would be better. I didn't think it'd do much more harm to try it one more time, but sadly, as the meth advertisements warn, meth, not even once. After deciding to try it for the second time to see if I could figure out what was so desirable and enjoyable about meth, it wasn't long until I had tried it more times than I could recall. At that point, I had never in my wildest dreams imagined what could possibly, or in reality what, would happen. I wasn't anywhere near being one of those tweakers that were covered in sores, looked emaciated, was constantly super twitchy and jittery, or who was stealing from my family. I had truly started to believe that meth was actually doing some positive in my life somehow. But this phase with meth ended very quickly, and it wasn't long till I stopped leaving my house aside from getting or doing drugs altogether. I quickly learned how to light the pipe for myself and even began picking up my own techniques with smoking and scraping pipes and doing lines. A pretty box of a pink ribbon, once filled with perfumes, was now filled with pink meth pipes, drugs, and tools used to do drugs. My OCD became intensified, and my home was even cleaner than it was normally. I could draw and write for hours on end and had become so crafty I even impressed myself. I always wanted to go out and party and socialise, and I'd kind of laugh as I sat in a bathroom stall in nightclubs making myself a line. They had signs on the back of every door saying the use of illegal drugs was strictly prohibited. I debated how cute a picture of the sign, along with my line and a $20 bill underneath it would look. I was always a little heavier, but I had started losing weight. More weight than I even realised. I began feeling a lot more confident. I was finally starting to understand what the hype was with meth. It was, in a way, a heightened sense of sobriety. I'd almost even completely stopped drinking alcohol. While I was on drugs, I stayed home by myself a lot more and wasn't taunted with the temptation anymore. Besides, I had to force myself to even take a sip of water so I could move my tongue in my mouth. Meth made alcohol impossible. Although I honestly had never felt those euphoric feelings it is said that meth gives. I was in my own state of euphoria for different reasons. I had become Wonder Woman. I became friends with my dealer pretty quickly as I'd become a regular. The friends I had gotten his number from initially had eventually started going through me to get drugs, because I was someone whose phone call would rarely go unanswered. Thank God my dealer was good about answering me, because I had started calling quite a bit more. I've never been stingy with my drugs throughout any of my addictions, but I was suddenly becoming agitated by constantly sharing my drugs with everybody. Once I had figured out how to smoke on my own, it wasn't exactly necessary to do so with 5 other people every time. The more I shared, the less I had once everyone had gone. I also no longer had a vehicle and was unable to drive due to my DUI. So when the drugs were gone, it was a problem. I'd started to understand the saying, bigger is better, and I started buying bigger and bigger bags of drugs. I started stashing drugs and telling friends I didn't have any left. I would have to sit in misery with them until they'd take the hint that I wasn't doing anything to get us more, and that it was time to go home. I I started running out of resources to get drugs pretty quickly, and I began to panic. My home life had changed dramatically shortly after I'd started doing meth. My mom was in a very well-off situation suddenly. Spoiled by lavish gifts and trips around the country, she was also given large amounts of money to top it off. Sometimes there would be over $1,000 cash in her wallet, and when she began getting ready for work and got in the shower, I'd slip a little cash. It started out with a 20 here or 40 there, but when that went unnoticed, I started stealing 100 at a time. I would tell myself that it wasn't like she worked for it, so I didn't have to feel bad. Besides, it wasn't like I didn't need money for things anyway. Having gotten into a relationship with someone who had money, I was hardly seeing my mom anymore. It broke my heart the more I realised I was never going to have that mother-daughter relationship that I'd longed for my whole life, but the more I thought about it, the angrier I'd become. I did more and more drugs and continued stealing money for a good amount of time. But the longer it went unnoticed, the more infuriated I became. I couldn't understand how my mom was suddenly ripped from my life and had become even more distant than she had always been, or how she could have so much of everything now. That hundreds of dollars going missing meant nothing to her. All the while, I was still asking for toothpaste and some deodorant, and each time would have to listen to the lecture of needing to get a job, move out, and support myself. After leaving rehab and becoming homeless and spiralling down even worse with my drinking, I'd been forced to move out of state and back in with my mom, and I hadn't really worked other than a few part-time retail jobs. I lost all of them due to drinking. I had fallen into an extremely intoxicated, depressive state that I couldn't even fathom having to hold a job at that point. But I couldn't believe how selfish she was acting when it would mean nothing to her to help me with some necessities. Not talking about drugs. Even more so was that she was helping me without even realising it, and she still had the audacity to give the speech. She had someone taking care of her and saving her from everything she got herself into throughout her entire life. She honestly had no idea how to do exactly what she was asking me to do without being helped, yet she offered none. I am beyond baffled that she had even failed to realise her daughter had become hooked on crystal meth and was beginning to waste away right in front of her face. The physical morph happening to me had become pretty evident, pretty rapidly. Having been staying up for days at a time, sometimes nearing a full week, I'd be so malnourished and delirious that I'd see my mom in the hall in passing and she'd accuse me of being wasted from alcohol. Her ignorance and ridicule only fueled my desire to see how much further I could go without what I was really doing being realised. Having a parent that has never experienced any type of addiction whatsoever gave me the ability to venture off with meth, so far that I ended up losing my way back. The very reason why I tried meth for the first time was because I was madly in love. I was in love with an addict. He was my everything. All I had wanted was to be with him on that particular night that I tried it for the first time, but he hadn't had a ride over. Later in the night, I was told that I was being left at the friend's house we were all at on the opposite side of town from which I lived, but I would be picked up and taken home the next morning. I wasn't having it. I was not about to get stranded yet again. I wasn't staying there, end of story. It eventually came out that the friend I had driven with was going to go hang out with the very person I was in love with. I couldn't go with because they were going to be doing meth. I didn't do meth, so they didn't want me there making negative comments and offsetting the vibe because I wasn't on the same level as them. Like I said, love is a powerful thing. I agreed to try meth for the first time solely for the ability to be with my love. I really had no intention of following through with doing meth, but after paying for 2 bags of it, I figured I might as well get something for my money. I wish I had never opened that door within our relationship because, in the end, I chose her too, just as he always had. I did, eventually, fall out of love on meth. 2 meth addicts can never truly work because meth will always be number 1 to an addict. Someone I had once loved so deeply that I'd literally physically ached when we fought had suddenly become someone I despised. I developed meth mind. Constant thoughts racing back and forth, overanalyzing things, finding 8 different solutions to situations that hadn't even happened yet. Resentment for things that had already been left in the past for some time. I hated him. I hated finally knowing what it was that has caused him to hurt me so badly, so many times before. I hated how much of my life, my time, my money, my love, everything that I had given him, and how there weren't even excuses anymore. Doing drugs together was to him me accepting every time he had cheated, lied, embarrassed me, or whatever else he had put me through. I was apparently supposed to understand now. I was supposed to accept it because he had been high, needing to get high, getting someone else high, and at that time, I just wasn't important to him. Because I now knew what it was to be high on meth and to crave it and want more and more. All was to be forgiven now. I didn't see eye to eye with him on that one. I'd been so afraid to lose him for so long that I realised I truly ended up losing myself. I wasn't about to lose some of my meth by using it on him now too. Instead, I felt empowered by the meth to finally say, "Fuck you, I'm done." I cut out the biggest part of my life at that time and replaced him with meth. I now had one less person to share my drugs with, as well as my living space, and now had all the privacy I've ever wanted. I've always been way too compassionate and accepting of others taking advantage of me in multiple ways. I was born with the Pisces curse. I loved that meth allowed me to be a little more aggressive and to put my foot down and think about myself for a change. I wasn't really thinking about myself though. I was thinking about meth. And just as he had, I chose meth over anyone and anything else. My life had never exactly been what I'd call paradise, but things had gotten a lot more intense at that point. I didn't really care to hang out much anymore the way I used to when I was drinking. I hated not being able to continue the routine of getting high while I was out. It was annoying crushing up lines in a bill in some random bathroom in secrecy. It was just such a hassle getting high and being away from home and not being able to craft, write, clean, or do more drugs in peace. I began to distance myself from the people I had once been close to and filled their places with newer people. People who also did meth and whom I could chill with, pipe and markers in hand. I also had acquired quite a few shadow people at that point, and they took up enough of my time and energy following me around every day that I didn't even mind everyone else now being gone. Not everyone was gone though, mind you. I had acquired a new, rather large circle of meth users, best friends who understood me and were always there for me and my drugs. My mom's new partner, P, owned a business in a different state where P had been living up until they got together. P offered me a job since it had been so long since I'd been employed, and I needed to make money somehow. I ended up moving to a new state for a few months. I brought all the drugs I could afford with me and prayed that my plan for more once I got there would work out. A few of P's family members I was now surrounded by and living around were meth users as well. They were the sort of tweakers who had sores on their faces and were missing teeth and really possessed the epitome of meth mouth. I thought they would eagerly hook me up with some meth if I offered to smoke them out or something, but they were reluctant at first. But eventually, they sold me a $20 sack, charging me $70 for it. I was pissed, but there was no way I could turn it down. I needed to get high. I smoked all of it with a number of people that night, and thought about planning a quick trip back home to get more drugs. A few days later, I was introduced to Jay. We were going to be working together, and she was going to pick me up the next morning for the hour-and-a-half drive up to our location. P told me a little about her and said that she was an old family friend, and she also mentioned that she had a drug problem in the past but was sober now. P had no idea that I was doing drugs at this point. She was just giving me an idea of who I was going to be working with, and I'm glad she did. I ended up loving Jay. She was much younger than I expected, pretty attractive, though it was evident she had put some years into her drug use. She had been sober for 8 months at that point and was slowly working on getting her life back together. We hung out and drank at the bar after work and we really just clicked. It took me about a week for me to come to a conclusion to the debate that had been going on in my head. should I ask her for drugs? I really need them. Is that fucked up though? I mean, she's sober now. Should I just do it? Yeah, I'll do it. I need to get high. I asked Jay one night if she could get me some meth because I was literally about to leave the state to go and get high. I told her I felt really bad asking, but I was desperate. She told me she'd have to see if she could even get in touch with someone anymore, but she would try. The next day, she brought me a tea. A very large tea. I was ecstatic. I had my own room at Peace House she used to live in. No one was allowed to even consume alcohol in the house because of her grandmother's rules whom the house had belonged to before she passed away. But I spent all my time in my walk-in closet smoking meth anyway. I even brought my pipe to work and would smoke meth in the containers while no customers were around. One day while me and Jay were working, she asked me if I brought my pipe with me. I told her I did, and she asked if she could hit it. I am disgusted with myself for even creating a situation in which she could potentially relapse, but I did anyway. I told her I didn't want her to fuck up her sobriety because of me, and she told me it wasn't a big deal. She just wanted to use this weekend, and she'd be over it. So, we smoked meth together that day. We smoked meth together every day, actually. Even when P fired me, and we were no longer working together. She even came down to visit me after I left the state and went home, and we smoked so much meth, I had to literally tell her I couldn't handle it anymore, I was actually getting sick. After P fired me because someone had told on me for taking a shot or whatever it was, I instantly got a job in a hotel working front desk. I personally loved the job and picked up on everything within a matter of days and was instantly comfortable. A few of the girls liked me because I was so independent and required little assistance. Apparently the girl's position I had filled was in her 4th month there before she left for college, and she had just barely started to get the hang of everything. I finally had a decent job and one that I enjoyed. There were signs everywhere saying security had the right to search your belongings at any time, for any reason, and I worried about bringing drugs with me to work. But, of course, I did it anyway. I couldn't go 8 hours without drugs. I did lines in the bathroom while I was working. When I got home, I'd lock myself in my closet and smoke and smoke and smoke until it was time to go to work in the morning. One day, I got a voicemail from the manager. I didn't listen to it because I didn't want to have to deal with making a phone call back. I ignored it and went back to work after my day off and was met with confusion. Apparently the message I had received was telling me that my services were no longer needed, and I was fired. I didn't find out till months later why I was let go, and it turns out someone had said I was bragging about not having to be drug tested, unlike the rest of the employees because I had been hired directly by the main boss. I had worked with her at my previous job and we had become friends. The day I was fired by P, she actually came to my house and offered me the job saying she knew I'd be perfect for it. She knew I smoked weed and drank, so she said I wouldn't be drug tested, thank fucking God. However, I had never said anything about that to anyone. That would be absolutely ridiculous. One night while me and Jay were at the bar drinking and partying, both on drugs, we ran into T. She talked to us for quite a while, and I could tell was eyeing me suspiciously and judging me. Not only were some people a bit envious that I was the outsider to this small town, and happened to become a part of the most well-known, successful family that basically ran everything, but I was also attractive, and the girls didn't like it. I'm almost positive T could tell I was on drugs, and complained about it because she had been suspended for failing a drug test with marijuana, and required to attend mandatory drug counselling. That put an end to me remaining in that state any longer. And so, once again, I returned home and I got high. Even though I'd made a lot of money while I'd been away working, I spent it all on drugs and gambling. I started pawning my jewellery and whatever else I could afford to get rid of so that I could get high. I hung out with people I really didn't care to be around so that I could get high when I didn't have any money, and I began really isolating myself. The process of hanging out with friends who were either unaware of my drug use or were not users themselves became not only draining but very unappealing to me. I didn't want to go out drinking. It took me sometimes over an hour to convince myself to pry my jaws apart for a few seconds to even merely drink some water. I quickly excused myself from my once beloved social circle and hid away in my room with my pink meth pipe and my markers. One of my best friends at that time had started telling me that I had a problem, and that she couldn't have meth in her life anymore because of what it was doing to her, and that if I continued using, that meant me too. Of course, I dismissed her feelings. I explained that I was glad that she had come to that point and that she was deciding to no longer use meth, but that I, personally, did not care to stop. I pointed out that we were in different places in life and our priorities were not the same. I did not feel my drug use had reached the point of negatively affecting me thus far, but that I would support her decision to quit. Obviously, I was very high. At first, I didn't even realise I was doing it, but when I'd look away from the mirror after tweezing my eyebrows, the room would be spinning. There were times I'd sit by my window in my room at around 9 AM with my magnifying mirror, tweezers, and some cigarettes, and I'd suddenly find myself sitting in darkness, my phone dying because I'd been running the flashlight app for hours as I picked at various portions of my body. It started with tweezing, and I'd pluck out every single hair that needed to be plucked, and then would notice hairs that hadn't even broken through skin yet. Because the skin was so thin above my eyes, I'd see the hairs about to surface and I'd try to dig them out. I'd squeeze at them and even rip a hole with the tip of my tweezers to get it out. It left scabs all over my eyebrow area, and I blamed it on ingrown hairs. For a while I wasn't able to leave my room to see anyone without first applying makeup over the wounds. And it then moved on to the back of my thighs. I had noticed my leg hair grew in weird directions and was the reason I could never get a smooth shave. I began to pluck the thicker leg hairs growing in odd directions that the razor had missed. With the drug use came the body acne from the drugs draining through the pores. As a result, I actually did start to get ingrown hairs. Hairs that were stuck inside the skin accompanied by pus. I had to pop the ingrown hairs and get the pus out, and then I had to dig. As with my eyebrows, I began making little holes in which to dig the ingrown hairs out. The hairs were sometimes so short still that I literally couldn't get them out, but I'd try for hours anyway. I'd find myself dripping blood on the floor from multiple places and covered in lesions in more than one spot. It stung to even take a shower, because I had picked so many holes in my body that the soap and water stung like crazy. I'd even started picking a little at the bumps on my forearms that had been diagnosed as heat rash by a dermatologist, and for a long time wasn't able to wear anything short-sleeved around anyone. I tried desperately to divert my attention elsewhere while I was high, but I was slowly destroying my body internally and externally. Word of my drug use began to spread throughout my former social circle, and suddenly my once best friend was speaking of me as if I was some disgusting, evil person. I was even threatened through text messages and told to just end everything already because I was just a nasty druggie and nobody liked me. It was all anyone could talk about. I was a tweaker. It baffled me how some people even had the audacity to go there when they had been the very ones lighting the pipe for me in the beginning. Besides, I hadn't left my room in nearly a year now, and even showed face to all of these people. Why did it matter what I was doing? Which, in my mind, they really had no clue as to what exactly that was. I didn't notice that I had lost 40 pounds and my cheeks and eyes were sunken in. I actually felt I had room to deny that I was on drugs because most of these people hadn't even spent time with me any time recently, so they wouldn't know. Unfortunately, that was just another blatant giveaway that I was on drugs. I honestly don't even believe I cared about any of the bullshit I was getting. I only cared about getting high. Besides, I had a few people left, and some new ones. All friends who are on drugs as well. But even quite a few of those on drugs are no longer in my life. Some have passed away, some gotten sober, and some just decided not to associate with me any longer because of the extent of my drug use. It's honestly sad. Sad that friends could be battling the same exact addiction and simply point the fingers while denying to avoid the association. But Crystal never betrayed me though. She's always been there no matter what I managed to do. I'm surprised it wasn't the most obvious thing in the world really. After 2 years of meth use though, my mom still had no idea. I lost all this weight, I never had any money, I was constantly finding myself in stupid situations and I never ate or slept. I'd also become increasingly irritable and vicious, but it never clicked. My mom was going out of the country with P for some business, and she was having P's mom come from out of state to stay at our house while they were gone. She didn't trust that I wouldn't throw some huge parties and destroy the house while she was gone. Even though my older brother was still living at home at the time, she was still hiring a babysitter. I was livid. I was 22 years old. Was she fucking kidding? Ever since my mom had started dating P, my house had become less homey. There was always some of P's relatives around, and even simply having P around was awkward. We didn't really know each other yet, and it was like suddenly living with a stranger. I was so stoked they were leaving the country and I could have some peace in which to do drugs and laundry until 5:30 AM while blaring music. They weren't having it, and I was getting a babysitter. That is when I flat out asked my mom if she was stupid. Have you not realised I haven't left my room in a year and a half, more or less even gone to a party, and you think I'm going to throw one? And invite fucking who? I want to sit in my fucking room and smoke meth in peace and not deal with strangers in my house. Her response was, I can't believe you could put meth in your body when you've always been so conscious about the food you eat and the products you use on your body. After that, I no longer was just the drunk of the family who needed to get a job. I was a druggie, a meth addict. I no longer was given money. Anytime something was misplaced, I was questioned, and everyone for the most part stopped acknowledging me. I was never invited to do anything anymore. Even though the days after crashing I wanted nothing more than to eat my heart out with them at a fancy restaurant with fluffy pancakes. My mom even stopped buying things like toothpaste and shampoo for me, which she always used to. It was as if I became worthless and unworthy of anything at all. Just mere seconds before I exploded and threw the fact of my using out there, I wasn't just a druggie, I was still a human being. All of a sudden it's about them though. I'm a threat to their world. Maybe I should just go and end it all. My superpowers to clean, socialise, do crafts, and even pick myself eventually burned out. I can't even get up to go pee without hitting my pipe 5 or 6 more times, reminding myself I need to use the restroom each time. It's gotten to the point where I can't even leave my room anymore while I'm getting high, because I can't even look people in the face. I shake, and my breathing is shallow, making my voice shake when I talk. My skin looks almost dirty. It becomes a bluish, blackish tint as the meth cuts off the circulation of blood to my skin. No matter how much makeup remover I use, the black bags don't come off anymore, and I can't even really think straight enough to have a normal conversation with anyone other than myself anyway. I'm sad, and I'm scared. Sad that I let meth take over me, and afraid now that I'm no longer as strong as I once was. I've isolated myself, and it's lonely, but social interaction has become unbearably overwhelming for me. My metabolism is beyond ruined, and my body is stuck in starvation mode, from going for 6 or 7 days with no food, and then all of a sudden binge eating, followed by another week of starvation. My back hurts from sitting for hours and hours without moving, hunched over a notebook or a magnified mirror. Sometimes the pain is so excruciating, it feels like I'm being stabbed in my kidneys. I've even developed a kidney infection due to the excess amount of meth I use. I no longer have a period. I'm constantly covered in bruises, and I literally see my sickly body breaking down a little more each time I get high. I'm 23 years old, and I feel about 60. My body aches, my head aches, my jaws ache, my back feels like it's about to give out and I'm going to collapse. Even my heart hurts. The depression hurts. Even though I've lost 12 pounds this week starving myself, the depression feels as if it weighs an additional ton. So how is it that all of that could still not be enough to make me quit doing meth? Meth takes control in ways most people could never imagine. Because of the feeling of an enhanced sobriety, it's hard to go back to doing things sober without the catalyst of meth. Cleaning, something, anything becomes dreaded and put off for months, and my environment becomes filthy. It's hard to be able to concentrate on tasks or to get them completed in the way I usually do on drugs, while I'm sober. Merely getting out of bed is hard. It's physically and psychologically painful. My body is so worn out after waking up from a crash that most times I use the restroom and I'm back out for another 2 days. If I don't stay up after sleeping for 2 days and start doing drugs again, I can easily sleep for a week and a half only getting up to pee. Once I can't sleep anymore, I start eating. My body's usually deprived of everything, so my brain wants fatty, greasy, sugary foods and beverages to attempt to fulfill me and to give me some sort of boost of energy, as I feel like living dead while I no longer have a meth boost. As I begin sobriety, I gain weight at rapid speeds and suddenly none of my clothes fit anymore, and I'm too embarrassed as well as depressed to even think about trying to dress up and go out and do anything. Simple trips to places like Walmart or the dollar store become overwhelming and I get anxiety and have panic attacks. I have drug flashbacks from going to places I generally spent time at while I was high, causing me to panic. Attempting to do anything, even something as simple as checking out using a self-checkout at the grocery store, becomes intimidating and unthinkable while sober. It's literally like having to retrain myself to do anything I've ever had to do for myself in life. I have to relearn even basic social skills. I have to teach myself how to once again act as a functioning member of society. I have to nurse my body back to health to even have the energy to walk up and down the stairs, to do a load of laundry. I even have to remind myself how to eat normally again. I'm constantly reminding myself that the shadow people aren't real, even though they were following me for the last few years. They are not really there. I have to deal with the realization that no one honestly knows what I'm dealing with or going through, so it's not reasonable to get angry or out of line with them. I have to remind myself that I did this all by my own free will. The hardest out of everything is having to realize all of this and then some, and commit to fighting for my life back. Starting over for that very last time, and it truly being the last time, and not running away from it all and relapsing and ending up even further from square one than I'd been each time before the last time. And that's the hardest part about sobriety. The acknowledgement and acceptance that sobriety means living free of substances. Living my life and coping with feeling things again, without a crutch to hide behind. Facing myself and everything I use substances to run away from. Not having the comfort and reassurance of being able to make myself feel something expected and go somewhere that's familiar. Every time I get high, I know what's coming, what's going to happen. Having to actually get to know myself and love and accept myself as I am seems unfathomable. It's the hardest challenge I've ever had to face. After countless near-death experiences, destroying my body and my dignity, hurting my family and friends, and wasting so many years of my life that I can never get back, I can't figure out how to stop for good. I always run back to drugs and alcohol. I hate losing control of myself and being vulnerable and unprotected, blacking out portions of life and feeling embarrassed to even simply look at my phone the next day actually sickens me. But I do not know how to cope other than more. My true drug of choice. More. I tried to black out my existence from myself, but there's always those time periods that reality hit me in the face. I don't feel cool because I'm an addict. I don't even like people watching me do drugs or being around me while I'm on drugs, but I still use. It's embarrassing to even put into words that I feel even more of a high when I watch myself become strung out. It makes me feel powerful in a sense. As I begin to look sickly and empty and my eyes become sad and confused, I feel in control. I'm the one doing this to me. This time, no one is hurting me but me. Watching my body shrink before my eyes only to fill out again and knowing I can control that too makes me feel a sense of power. I know I'm fucking my organs up, my brain, my stomach, my skin, my lungs. It's all part of the thrill. It's like dying but not really having to die forever. More than a handful of times I've literally felt my body shutting down because I overdosed on heroin or painkillers, or I took a bad mixture of substances and I began to feel my heart slowing down, stopping. I know that if I don't connect mentally with my physical being, that I will die laying there in that position, just like that. Knowing that if I don't make myself breathe that I am about to die, makes me feel a sense of power so unhealthy, it scares me even as I'm loaded. Feeling my heart stop and my chest get heavy and watching my hands and arms turn blue, it fascinates me that I can see this. It's almost an out-of-body experience. And then right before the black curtains begin to shut, I force myself to take a shallow breath to stop it. How is it possible that I'm in control of whether I live or die in those moments? I don't want to die. That was never my goal after I found refuge in substances, but at the same time it's a little thrilling to think that maybe this next time it won't be like the last time. What if the next time I do just a little too much, and I nod out and I'm unconscious and unable to tell myself that I need to take a breath? It's like Russian roulette, and I now live for the rush of the game. I intrigue myself on drugs and feel like I'm an entirely different person when I'm loaded, and it's almost like I'm getting the ability to meet me as a different person and learn everything about the person I become when I'm high, as I'm high. My thought process is different, my appearance becomes different, my mentality, way of thinking, tolerance, creativity, all of it. It's new. It's like Christmas, but I can celebrate it all year long and the anticipation is never more than a few hours. But after the third day with my altered self, the people start to come for me. No matter what I try to do, they won't give up. It's like they come to pick up the altered spun out me, and then they make me go home to the other me. Unless I want to spend time with them for a while, I have to force myself to sleep because they will not leave until I do so. They follow me and slide by in my peripheral vision, and I turn to check behind myself and suddenly they are dead center in front of me, staring at me dead in the eyes. They make me feel terrified, paranoid, miserable, trapped, anxious, and depressed. They take my control away. They change the high me and turn me into a delusional, scared, and alone me. I hate that one. I hate feeling the control leave my grasp and once again being left to exist at the mercy of others. But that's the worst part. An addict is never really in control of anything. The drug controls the addict from the very first time. Who am I fucking trying to kid here? I'm not connecting with myself intellectually while I'm high, I'm causing irreversible brain damage. I'd like to believe I'm one of the lucky ones who had the advantage of being a bit more intelligent than the average person, allowing me to keep a true sense of reality even despite the drugs I'm on. Even though I'm spun out of my mind and ready to go into cardiac arrest because I'm hallucinating so badly and I'm literally scared shitless, I know what I'm doing. I'm not oblivious to the fact that I look like an idiot peeking out of my curtains every 4 seconds, thinking I hear someone showing up at my house. Finding myself sitting there, cleaning up my own urine on my floor with my dirty laundry, because the Tupperware I was peeing in had filled and I tried to empty it in a Ziploc so I could use it again, and instead it went everywhere else. My bathroom is literally 10 feet away from me, right outside my door. But there's people at my house and I'm hallucinating and hearing things and I'm greasy and bright red and I pick my face, chest and arms apart for hours and look like I've broken out in hives. I do not want to open my bedroom door and risk being heard and letting anyone know I'm awake. I don't want to talk to anyone. In fact, I can't even talk. I can't even open my mouth, my jaws are locked and my tongue is dried out. My head is fucking killing me because I'm so dehydrated and I can't get my jaws to lighten up from the pressure. I just want to die. I just want to end it all. But I don't really want to end it all. But what am I doing? I'm smoking battery acid and nail polish remover, rat poison and brake fluid. I am killing myself. It's embarrassing to admit I'm stupefying myself. As I'm writing, I find myself pausing because I forget the words I'm looking for to finish the sentences I'm writing. God, what was that word that means like, what am I doing to myself and my life? I almost want to text someone because for some reason, I can't for the life of me think of the word. After smoking more meth and zoning off for a second, literally hurting my brain thinking, I remember the word and it's pathetic. The scariest thing about meth is the psychological control it has. I hate meth. I've never liked the way it makes you feel. I don't like being tensed up, greasy, nauseous, paranoid and dehydrated. I don't like headaches and dry heaves or shitting straight clear mucus because I don't eat any fucking food. I don't like being trapped in my room alone 24/7, unable to be loved or appreciated for the good that I do possess because I'm fucking high on meth. I don't like blowing people off and making anyone feel that I don't care for them or that they're unimportant. I would never want to be the cause of someone feeling not good enough, like I feel every day. I hate this depression. I don't want to be sad. I don't want to just throw the towel in and accept I'm a drug addict that is not in recovery. I don't want to use. Yet I'd give up anything for meth. I did give up everything. I gave up me. I always say it's the last time, but it never is. Throughout all the people who have walked out on me and who I've distanced myself from, meth is here. I crash and sleep for days and wake up and smoke some weed and watch the Kardashians and tell myself it's going to be okay. Hours later, I'm sitting there with a sack of drugs. I'm terrified of unpredictable feelings. The meth will always be consistent and familiar. I'm sad, miserable and lonely every single time. Lonely until day 3, when the shadow people come. And I don't even need to hide my tears. It's not an irrational fear. They are going to hurt me. I am going to hurt me. There's no escaping this one until the very end. I guess I sort of did listen when they said, meth, not even once. I did it twice, and it is now my fatal vice.
Friday, 5 p.m. I got off work and met my drug buddy. We are going on 17 plus years strong. We smoke lots of ganja and stay out of the sun. So I picked Dude up, that's what we'll call him. I'm gonna go hook up with this chick I work with, whose boyfriend has all the great chemical connections. Best MDA I ever got was from this person, so I trusted him with my life. Best high makes best friends sometimes. 6 p.m. Crap, no MDA tonight. He only had some new stuff to Seattle and the West Coast only at the time called Ice. Okay, whatever, let's get high. I've had 2 beers where we met him at a bar and it's Friday. How much? 100 a gram. Okay, 50 from Dude and 50 from me, and voila, a gram of some stuff that looked like blocks of actual glass, but a cloudy color, kinda cream/white. So we all exit in our respective direction, and I love the burn from meth, so I'm actually ready for this. 6:30 p.m. We find a big parking lot and line up a couple rails. My friend has always been a tweaker, and I an opiate freak, so he obviously has to show me up by doing about 1/8 of his half in one line. I take about half of that. Remember here, I only end up doing a total of about 1/4 for this entire fiasco. 8 p.m. We are sitting in the same parking lot, same exact spot, and just staring at everything around us like a couple tweaker goldfish in a rather large Buick. Okay, this is weird, kinda like cocaine, and being partly blacked out from drinking too much. Reminder, I had only 2 beers at the bar, and Dude had 2 also. We were gonna go pick up some more once we got jacked up, and well, that just never happened. Back to our pathetic story. 10 p.m. I am just in awe how fast time is going by, and we are just staring like a couple tweakers at nothing and haven't even done another line yet. Oh, but the devil inside says I need more. That's the problem. Maybe we're both just tired from working a long day or just received a frontal lobotomy. Dude does his basic 1/8 of a gram line. I don't care, so I do the same size just to show him up. I mean, what the heck? I'm not high really, just very paranoid and having weird amnesia type moments where we don't say anything but stuff like, whoa, okay, yep, what a pathetic conversation. I think back now to 2 people on speed. This is still, at this point, a cocaine mild blackout high with no visuals. No racing pulse really, no nothing. Just goofy ass looks on our faces. We are too paranoid to even look each other in the eye. 1 a.m. Long ass drive to Dude's house. We both thought we needed a little more, so damn, Dude hammers another 1/8 gram down, and I stop with one last tiny one. I don't remember a damn thing really, other than good night and good luck. After the drive there, drive home, same thing. 2 a.m. Home. That was odd. I started waking up after that last little line, or this crap is seriously time delayed. I am home, my lights are off, and I decide to do the tweaker thing again and look at the window. Okay, folks, this is where all hell breaks loose. I feel pretty coherent, like I said. I'm used to LSD 25, MDA, MDMA, indica, speed, heroin, cocaine, freebase, and I'm only 22 years old here in 1989. So in other words, I'm no lightweight. I know what being whacked out my mind, fearing the return of sanity to return felt like. But this was a strange cocaine-like clarity, so none of this crap should have been seen in my state of mind. But it happened. 2:15 a.m. to 10 a.m. Like I was saying, tweakville, but clear mind. This to me was reality. I look outside and see a neighbor's lights on in their window with the drapes closed, and I see shadows doing something, so I get my binoculars to see what the hell that is. I pick them up and look to see what looks like some sick orgy with people being hit and raped, so I, being a good Catholic man hater, get very disturbed here. This cannot be happening, but I'm really focused now, so I feel 80 to 90% sober. I move the binoculars to the rest of the house in the yard area, and there's a guy with sunglasses on at night, smoking a doobie and staring right at me, smiling. I panic. I live in a decent part of town. Nothing like this would ever happen here. I move the binoculars back to the window, and they are still doing some sick things. I can see it pretty well, like shadows on the drapes. I zoom back to Doobie Boy, and oh crap, where did he go? I put down the binoculars, and the guy is standing right freaking there, with a big ass smile on his face, and a gun pointed at me. I hit the ground hard and roll to the door ASAP. I tear off to the phone and call the cops. I don't say much, but I tell them to send out a squad car saying that some strange things are going on about 3 houses away from me down the block, and they need to get here quickly. I wait by the front door to wait for the cop to drive by. Damn, 2 minutes or less. Yeah, baby, bust those freaks terrorizing our neighborhood. Where are you going, cop? He drove right by the house, and no brake lights, so I guess the coast is clear. I still have not eaten yet, or drank even water when I look back. I was just fine, but freaked out. I don't want to wake up my mom and aunt who's staying with us, so I must go back to my room. Creeps me out. I hide in the corner of my closet for about an hour, and around 5 a.m. I come out and decide they must be gone by now. It's still a couple hours from being light out, so I sneak up to the window and have to take a peek. I look at the house. Good. Lights out. All of a sudden, like a viper from out of nowhere, Doobie Boy comes running out of my next door neighbor's hedges right at me. Yep, back on the floor and back to the phone. This time, they want to talk to someone in the house. I tell my aunt, who is well experienced with drugs, former go-go dancer at the Whiskey Go-Go in the late 60s. She hears me out before the cops get to my house and says, let me talk to them. I will tell them I saw someone also, so they really do a thorough search of this area. She deals with the cops and I hide in my room. My mom wakes up and catches the very end of my aunt talking to cops. What the hell's going on? This is my mom who has never smoked or drank in her life. I come back out and it's starting to get light out now. I tell my mom the story as my aunt stands behind her as if to say, keep it short, you are high, I can tell. Damn it, I'm not high. I'm thinking inside as I tell my shortened version about some kids running around outside. Not the real story by any means in my mind, but one that won't freak her out. Everyone settles down and goes back to bed, except me. I should be hungry, thirsty, or something. Nope, I'm very focused and obviously hallucinating in a very realistic world. I still need to look out the window. I mean, it's morning and people will be awake soon. This really rocked me what I saw next. Swinging in the breeze to the early morning light were 3 women from the big tree in the neighbor's front yard, 3 houses down. This cannot be possible. I say, what in God's name is going on? I think I am completely sober, and this is too much. Seeing these half-naked dressed young women hanging is like the straw that must have snapped my brain. I break down and literally black out for the next 12 hours, coming around about 10 p.m. Saturday night. I cannot remember much more, but that I never took that drug again, and the person I bought it from reported so many complaints from other people that went through similar experiences that ICE never made it in Seattle. It died that very year from the circuit. I now stick to opiates only with ganja occasionally. I am sober about 40% of the time and go on binges occasionally to clear out the cobwebs.
The Shadow People. A methamphetamine trip report by St. Jimmy. Posted to earwid.org June 25th, 2007. Before this trip on methamphetamine, I'd been using meth heavily for around 2 months. On this day, I was visiting my hometown from college for my birthday. When I got off the aeroplane, I was in very bad condition. I weighed 30 pounds less than the last time my parents had seen me, and had a black eye and a broken nose from a fight I'd gotten in whilst on meth. I ended up getting into a huge fight with my parents, and they kicked me out of the house. So, my boyfriend, M, picked me up and took me to a hotel to celebrate my birthday with his cousin C, and C's girlfriend, A. M had recently made a large drug pickup, and we had surplus amounts of methamphetamine on our hands. So, as soon as we got settled into the hotel, we started snorting lines and smoking. For a while, everything was like a normal meth trip. We all became hyper-creative and started drawing. C was drawing weird geometric people, and I was drawing Egyptians. C and A left the room to pick up some sodas, while I decided to lay down on the bed. From where I was laying, the ceiling looked like it was made of water. It was warping and flowing and changing colours constantly. It was weird, but very pretty. When C and A came back into the room, I pointed out this phenomenon to A. Apparently, C and A could see the water ceiling as well. So we all laid down on the bed to watch the show. M wanted nothing to do with this, because he knows the warning signs of a St. Jimmy meth freakout, and this is one of the signs. However, I was totally oblivious to this fact. After about 10 minutes, A sat up and noticed that a large vortex was forming in the corner of the hotel room. From this vortex, which looked like a smoky grey cube imploding on itself, emerged hundreds of shadowy figures. They were roughly human in shape, and seemed to be composed entirely of shadows. They had no facial features, or clothing, or any type of distinguishing marks. Being avid researchers of the paranormal, we instantly recognized these creatures to be shadow people. Panic quickly set in as the shadow people began to circle the room. At some point, M finally put down his pen and joined the chaos that was rapidly forming in the room. C, A, and I were huddled in one of the beds together, hyperventilating and in a general state of panic. Shadow people may not sound too frightening to those who know nothing about them, but as people who understand these creatures, we knew enough to be terrified. Shadow people are not malevolent beings. They are horrible, extra-dimensional beings that prey on human energy. Not a good situation to be in when we are spun and paranoid enough as it is. We began talking about what we thought the shadow people were, and came to the conclusion that they were beings from another dimension that had entered our dimension through this vortex. Methamphetamine had allowed our bodies to vibrate at a higher resonance than usual, and this attracted the shadow people. C decided that smoking more meth would make the shadow people go away, so A and I sat on the edge of the bed while C held the pipe and lit it for us. In retrospect, I realised that this was a horrible idea. All we did was make the experience even more intense. Finally, M jumped in and fed A and I some Xanax to calm us down. Unfortunately, nothing happened. The shadow people continued to assault our senses and terrify us. M and A decided that they would attempt to take photos of the shadow people with their cell phones. So they took off on an expedition to the bathroom, which, for some reason, seemed the best place to take photos to all of us. C and I sat on the end of my bed and waited for their return. I noticed that the closer to C I got, the more intense the visualizations got. A later stated that she noticed the same thing when near M. We later decided that C and M were conduits for A and my psychic energy, and that they increased our ability to perceive the shadow people. Soon, a mass about the size of a human torso began forming underneath the table. It was a large, translucent blob with no discernible form. C and I started screaming for M and A to come back, and they ran into the room. The blob started speaking to me telepathically, telling me that it was going to spiritually possess me and use my body to murder my friends. As it was speaking, it began climbing up my body. It inserted 3 tentacles into my navel and began to enter my body. Where the tentacles touched me, I felt a sensation similar to ice-cold needles being pushed through my skin. I wanted to get up and run away, but the creature had me completely paralysed. A started screaming at me to run, and for M and C to do something, but they just stood there, dumbfounded. A took matters into her own hands and took a flying leap at the creature and tackled it, ripping it out of my body. M grabbed me under my arms and C grabbed my legs and carried me to the other bed. During this, my body was still completely frozen. They dumped me on the bed and tried to get me to respond, but for a few minutes I was unable to move or speak. I have very vague memories of what happened next. All I recall is that A was telling me that the creature was gone. After I came back from my state of paralysis, M ordered me into the shower. I refused and started crying, telling him that the shadow people were in the shower and that I didn't want to be in the same place as them. M grabbed me by the arm and basically dragged me into the bathroom. He undressed me and shoved me into the shower and then climbed in after me. I became completely hysterical, seeing shadow people all around me. I huddled up in a ball, making myself as small as humanly possible. At this point, I doubt I was coherent. I was babbling while sobbing and shaking and trying to hide in the shower. M dragged me to my feet and asked me if I thought the rest of my life was going to be like this. I nodded. He then told me that if I was like this for the rest of my life, he couldn't be with me anymore. Then I really lost it. I started crying harder and screaming at him. I don't remember what I said. All I remember is M spitting in my face and shaking me as hard as he could, and M yelling at me to calm down. Eventually, he did get me to calm down enough to actually take a shower. The shadow people were mostly gone by this time. He dried me off and dressed me because I was incapable of doing it myself, and walked me out to the bedroom. From the look of things, C and A had just had a conversation similar to ours. C looked totally drained, as did M, and A was laying in the bed sobbing and exhausted. M and I climbed into our bed, and after a while of laying in bed in a state of total paranoia, we all finally drifted off for a few hours' sleep. The shadow people stayed with me for a few months. I saw them constantly, even when I wasn't high. I personally believe that what we saw that night was real. M disagrees and believes that everything we saw was drug-induced. I am no longer on speaking terms with C and A, and thus cannot put forth their opinions. I believe that A and I have some sort of psychic powers, and that methamphetamine put us in a highly receptive state. To further complicate this matter is the subject of the photos. We all saw shadow people in those photos when we reviewed them at a later time. Today, however, M claims that there is nothing in those photos, and they have all mysteriously disappeared. All photos were on M's phone. I think he is in denial, and does not want to face what the 4 of us went through, and so disposed of the photos from that night. All in all, Meth basically ruined my life through a long series of events. And in the end, I ended up with methamphetamine-induced schizophrenia.
Let me start off by saying some background information on me. At 14, I tried my first drug, and from then on, I've tried many others. These are marijuana, shrooms, cocaine, ecstasy, DXM, 2CI, various forms of painkillers and benzos, and what I'm doing my report on, methamphetamine, otherwise called the devil. I have always heard about people who have done meth and how they can't sleep for days and drop weight like crazy, and on rare occasions, see what they refer to as the shadows. Now, I didn't know people who were into meth, so the first time I came across someone who had it, I gave it a try. This was at the age of 16, and when I tried it, it had a pinkish color to it and was in powder. My experience with the most potent kind of meth will come later. The only thing I felt was a slight burn, and that was it. Years passed, and once again, meth came into my life when a coworker said he has some. This was at age 19. Now, within the 3 years which has passed, I gained knowledge on meth and how it has various forms, the most potent being in clear shard form, ice as most people call it. My coworker said he had some ice and gave me a sample. This time around, it was clear and looked just like they call it, broken little shards of ice. I made 2 lines and snorted one through my nostril and gave the other one to another coworker. First thing I felt was like I just snorted some jalapeno juice through my nose, cause that shit burned. And when I mean burn, I mean really burn. I got tears in my eyes. After a while, the burn feeling went away, and immediately, I just felt so energetic. It literally felt like I was floating. I felt euphoric, my body felt light, and I was very talkative. After this, I spent about 6 months using ice via snorting it, but yet I never got the side effects of people who say they can't sleep and all this other stuff. This changes later when I learn about smoking it. One day, I go over to my friend's house, who I didn't know was into ice, and ask him if he wants a line of it. He says sure, and we snort it. It figures he had some ice himself, and he takes out this pipe with a bowl on the end. These are those infamous pipes they no longer sell at the gas stations called Valentine roses. Well, he loads it with ice and takes out a lighter and starts heating up the bowl and inhales the smoke, blowing out huge smoke clouds. Now, this is the first time I smoked ice. I give it a try, and right away it feels way different and better than snorting it. I felt an immediate rush of adrenaline, and my eyes felt wide open. From now on, I smoked it, and this is when all shit started going downhill. I started wanting it more and more since it lasts a lot shorter smoking it. After binging for about 2 days, I then got the effects everybody would talk about. I couldn't sleep at all. As hard as I would try, it just wasn't possible. The thought of eating food would make me gag, so without sleep and food, I felt like shit, but the worst was yet to come. One night, while I was in my basement room trying to sleep, which wasn't happening, of course, I started hearing people outside my bedroom door. I went outside to open it, and nobody was there. I would lay back down, and it started happening again. I swear I would hear people talking, but yet when I go to turn on the lights, nobody would be there. Out of the corner of my eye, I would see these shadows and think they are people, and extreme paranoia like I never imagined would set in. This was the downfall and realization I need to quit this shit right away. After about 4 days, I would get back to normal. The worst I ever had it was going about 1 week without sleep and dropping down to about 130 pounds. I weighed 150. I would seriously get hot flashes and profusely sweat like no other. I have had my fair share of binges in the past, but no more. Stay clear away from this drug, as it will tear you apart without you even noticing it.